Some proposals included tax changes. Yeah, it's going to be another one of those. Well, hi there. My name is Charles Ray Dawson. I'm the Associate Broker Residential Sales Manager at ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 266. And I hope you're having a good day. So, it's funny, just as the countdown was happening, I just realized, I honestly think I'm allergic to this office. Because I'm pretty much fine most of the time until the drive into this office, and then when I'm here for a little while and I start getting all phlegmy and stuff. So, hey, I wonder if I could get a doctor's note saying, hey, no, he needs to work from home because you have an unhealthy environment for him. So, think that would work? Probably not. So, let's see. So, today is March is it the 12th already? Yeah, it's March the 12th already. What the hell? The first quarter is almost over, and I've heard that as you get older, time seems to go faster, and it's because of your how much you have to compare it to, basically, to make it easier. And I'm picking up on it at this point. I'm going to hit 60 and then just keep going on from there. And more days will turn into weeks, and weeks will turn into decades. Just sort of Lenin quote there. But okay, game face. And now the news. No, real estate. Me, really, really busy right now. I'm having a lot of time to get a lot of, research in. I keep looking at these other channels and going, how do they have such great production quality? And I'm like, well, one, that's all they do for a living. All right. Two, they have a team of minions behind them, cutting out all the ums and ahs and whatnot and doing the lighting correct. And, me, I got a camera, microphone. So, but, in the national real estate news, we're still having a bunch of conversations between Compass and the various MLSs and this and that and the other thing. That's all inside baseball. That only affects us, the real estate side, so you guys don't have to worry about that. Internationally, with the disruption to various oil, pipelines and this and that and the other thing, we're not seeing a lot of it on the housing rates, like for mortgages and whatnot. I would have expected some sort of, I think what it was is that when we suddenly had that drop, we had that run up to 110 or so per barrel in oil. Then Trump goes out there one speech and it drops down to 80. I think that got a lot of the people who were, the dumb investors, the ones who are always going in there looking for, oh, number go up, I need to buy. Oh, number go down, I need to sell. Those guys. I think that caught a lot of them. And a lot of them have lost some money and stuff like that. So it's that was the sort of flushing out the stupid. All right. So keep an eye on the interest rates. They still are trickling down. I'm seeing fives more and more. We are definitely having more buyers come on, which is good. But we're seeing more inventory come on, which is, of course, the inventory is coming on faster. And we have a potential, what I really want to cover, for some really, really fun things to start happening here. Let me get the numbers out of the way because I know you guys love the numbers. But all right, so numbers this week for March 11th, 2026. Actives as of yesterday was 25,081, up 165 from the previous week. Now, I did notice that the first week tends to have a little spike in inventory, and then we trickle down a bit, and then we have another spike. So people are definitely getting their houses ready to go by the end of the month so they could start the next month, all right? Will this trend continue? Probably through May or whatnot, but yeah, houses are still out there, right? New listings were 2,639, up 35 from the previous week. Contracts were 2,917, down 27, all right, but still good numbers on the contract side. Our closings are 1,567. Coming soon to MLS near you is 773 new listings. Our supply right now is at 103.9, a little bit above, where we'd normally be in a normal market, which I've never seen in my entire life, and probably neither have you. All right, demand is still at 86, actually ticked down a little bit. All right, and or actually up a little bit because it was like 85.8 or something like that. And given a Cromford report number ticking down even more towards the buyer side at 82.8. Now, we actually have the neighborhood numbers. All right. And as you can see, everything seems to be moving in the buyer's side. If it's red, it's moving towards the buyers. If it's green, it's moving towards the sellers. All right. But we are looking at Chandler still leading the pack. All right. 149.1. Then Gilbert, Fountain Hills, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Mesa, Cave Creek, Paradise Valley, Glendale, Tempe. All right. All considered sellers markets. Now our balanced markets, we only have 2 of them right now, Avondale and Peoria. And then for the buyers markets, all right, Goodyear, Santan Valley, Surprise, Queen Creek, Maricopa, and Buckeye. And God have mercy on your soul if you have a listing out there in any of those places. So one of our agents just basically got his teeth kicked in because he spent 180 days trying to sell this particular house. And it wasn't so much that that house didn't sell, but there was one sale in the entire subdivision during all of those 6 months, and that was Goodyear. People are not interested in buying in Goodyear right now, which means if you're interested in buying and getting a really nice house at a really decent price, those are your markets, guys. Goodyear, Santan Valley, Surprise, Queen Creek, Maricopa, or Buckeye. All right, Buckeye. Wow. Now, once again, caveat, all right? This means if you are a traditional homeowner, okay, a person who wants to live in a house with 4 walls, a good roof, all right, and live in your own house. If you want to rent, you can rent anywhere you want, but if you buy a house, you're not trading out every year or every 2 years ago like your rental. You need to be in that spot for a while, all right? Normally, I'd say it's going to take you 5 years, all right, for your house to appreciate to the point that where you need to sell it. When you take away all the costs of selling it, you break even. So think about the 5 years of break even rate. If you're sitting out there in Goodyear right now, if you're sitting out there in that lower neck, I would add more years onto it. So you buy that house, that might be your forever house. Seriously, is this going not just for you in where you're at right now, where your family's at? Do you have more kids on the way? Are you expecting more kids on the way? All right. These are things you need to start coming into it. If you're thinking, oh, I'm just going to, buy a house, live there for, 3 or 4 years, and then I'm going to transfer, to Seattle. Well, nah, dog. Those aren't the neighborhoods you want to be buying into. All right. Do your own research. So, really interesting watching AI conversation. I went pretty in depth on AI and how real estate agents were getting in trouble with that. One of the really interesting fields, and there's this great article, and I was listening to a podcast where the reporter is, he had a blood test that by the medical profession was pretty much, that's not 100% accurate. We don't like it. And what it was doing is screening for 50 different cancers. And he popped positive on one of them. And so he went down to the doc and said, hey, doc, I'm popping positive on this blood test that says I might have this. Can you take a look? So they looked at him and, long story short, he basically wound up having elective surgery to have one of his tonsils removed. Okay, with the understanding is that, we can take that tonsil out. We got a medical, it's a little swollen, it's a little enlarged, but you're not showing any of this throat cancer that your blood test is gone, and you can't trust those blood tests. That's, the powers that be have not given their blessing to that particular blood test. So they take the tonsil out. He goes home, eating his ice cream, doing his thing. A couple days later, he gets a call from his doctor. Now, normally when they do that procedure for cancer, they do the biopsy right there and then, and they go and check it out to see if they need to take more out. But because the doctor didn't think that the guy had cancer, they didn't do the biopsy. Well, guess what? Matter of course, later on they did, and they found out that he actually had like stage 1. So the blood test was accurate. Right. And now how this gets into AI, because this guy was really pushing the fact, is that you can do a great conversation with AI to learn about whatever it is you think you have going on, and go in and talk to the doctor with a bit of information so you know how to ask good questions. Now, we're seeing this in real estate where clients are going to ChatGPT and asking ChatGPT questions to second guess their real estate agent. Now, I'm incredibly comfortable with this. All right. Because I know how to have that conversation with my clients. Oh, da 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 da. Really? Where did you hear that? Oh, ChatGPT. Okay, well, here's. I'm not saying ChatGPT is wrong, but you asked the question wrong, or you did not fill ChatGPT in with all the information of what's going on in our particular transaction. So why don't you go back there and put in all the information, or just a similar, hey, why don't you put in there and say that's a VA loan? See if it gives you a different answer. All right. So it's that depth and breadth of knowledge. Now, notice, I'm not saying that the AI doesn't have the information. I'm saying that the person that's asking the questions of AI do not know the question and don't know how to phrase the question. All right. Why am I getting up on all of this? Because this page right here is an answer to the wrong question. All right, let's have a talk about this. All right, there is a big bill floating its way through Congress. All right, federal Congress, not state. Okay, and it is the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. Right, this is supposed to bring affordability into housing. Now, like any good piece of legislature, it is the sausage is getting made, and a lot of sacred pigs are getting ground into it. So, and a whole bunch of lobbyists are running around trying to make their things happen, and a whole bunch of true believers who don't understand anything about economics or the real estate market or anything are just reciting the stuff that they heard from their college professors back when they were freshmen and treating it as like mantra. So this thing it's an act. It's not formalized. It hasn't been voted yet. They're still in committee. They're still adding things and subtracting things, right? But one of the things that they wanted to do, and here's a fun one, okay? We have covered this before. Oh my God, housing is so affordable, or is unaffordable because Wall Street owns so many houses. They've done so much. They buy up all the houses from regular homeowners. They drive the prices up, this, that, and the other thing. And then when we actually look at the numbers itself, they don't own that many houses. But it's a great narrative. It's a great narrative. All right, let me say that again. It makes you feel good. You want to believe that. Because the bad guys are bad. The good guys are good. It's a just so story. And it's really hard to defeat a just so story. Because the listener wants to believe it. You want to believe that this is true. It's not that housing is, it's not that we're not building enough houses. Right? It's not that it's zoning issues. Okay, it's not that they're not building starter homes anymore because of the zoning issues. It's not that we don't have a bunch of boomers in there in 5-bedroom houses and there's just the two of them. Okay, and that the churn's not happening. It's not people like this guy over here not getting rid of his 2.5% interest rate. Right? It's the evil billionaires, millionaires and billionaires, whoever. I'm mixing. All right, at a certain point, all my boomer impersonations just blended into one big sort of New Englandy Queens, pastiche of bad pronunciation. But this particular bailiwick, what they wanted to do, and this one's going to be fun, all right, is they wanted to make the ownership of single-family homes very unprofitable for large investors. Sounds great. Big corporations will not buy houses if they can't make money on buying houses. I'm glad we admit the number one principle that corporations are out there to make money. Technically, they're out there to maximize shareholder value. Okay, but you get the point, all right? So we're halfway there with it, they understand. And so they wanted to come up with ways to, hey, we're going to throw a tax on every house over you own over whatever, we're going to charge you more, this, that, and the other thing, which sounded great. And if we took all those houses and suddenly dumped them on the market because these big institutions were no longer able to own that many houses, that sounds really, really good. But remember the numbers, guys. We already have exactly the amount of houses that we should have for our population. Right? We got 25,000. Right? If there's only 5,000, if there's only 10,000, all right, in Maricopa County, currently owned by these big REITs, these big multinational evil, Morgoths on the, on the Hudson out there. You drop 10,000 houses on this market right now, you will see people getting foreclosed on right and left. It will. Right, they will not be able to refinance out. They will not be able to do anything. Their house will suddenly be worth a lot less, and it'll be 2008 all over again. All right. So that's not a solution. Now, can we trickle them out? Yeah. Another one, okay, but what they are doing instead and what they're talking about instead, okay, is one, they're coming up with, they're defining a entity as a large investor. A large investor is an entity that owns more than 350 houses. Whether or not that's an individual or a corporation. If I own 350 houses, I'd be considered a large investor. All right. So, concept is that this would cap, and like in all good government programs, and who is it? Oh, the city of Seattle. Keep an eye on that market. That market's about to fall off the face of the earth. That place is going Detroit. All right. You heard it here first. Seattle will be Detroit. All right. And I might actually get to move there one of these years and afford to move there one of these years because they're doing the stupidest thing they could possibly do. What are they going to do? They want to put a payroll tax on large employers. Hear me out. And they want to pick a magic number. And at that magic number, let's say 150, you have 150 employees, we're going to charge you $500,000, all right, for being a large employer in the city of Seattle. So I'm sitting here at 149 employees, and I need a file clerk. And I want to bring that file clerk in at $35,000 a year. It's a trainer job. It's a starter job. This is the kind of job that gets you into the corporate ladder, all right? And you're thinking, well, it's only $35,000. No, guess what? That 150th employee, to me, the employer, now costs $535,000 a year. Or if I'm above, let's say I'm at 151 and they pass this, okay, I'm suddenly finding 2 people to fire. Does that make sense? So they're thinking about doing the same thing with housing. 350. Okay, we're going to cap it at 350. All right, and you hit the 350 mark, bad things are going to happen to you. Now, that will get people moving properties, but let's take a look at how we can go about doing this, all right? Large investors will not be allowed to purchase single-family homes, excluding build-to-rent, all right, rent-to-own, and homes that require heavy restoration. It'd be fun to figure out what they consider heavy restoration, all right? My idea of heavy restoration is that it burned down. You need to rebuild a new one, and you get to keep the slab, all right? Okay, but they are not going to be able to purchase single-family homes. All right, if they're a large investor, you hit with 350, you can't buy anymore. Done. Unless it was specifically developed as a build to rent. All right, do we see the unintended consequences kicking in here? All right. So, because little dark secret of real estate, big institutional investors who can come into a project and buy out the rest of the inventory when, all right, there is safety valve to the builders so the builders can build more spec houses. I have 200 lots. I'm going to build 200 houses on these things. I'm going to start phase 1. It's going to be the first 50 houses. Phase 1 goes great. Okay, People are coming in, seeing our model homes, all right, placing orders. We're going to start building them, 3 weeks after we get them all going. You'll be getting your house in 9 months. Great. And we start rocking and rolling. Okay, builders do not want, right, to stay working on that particular project for the next 5 years until they get the 200th house built and sold, right? So at the end, as they're going, they got their next development. They want to move those work crews over to the next development. So they might finish up the rest of that project just building them on spec. Hey, you know what? We've sold 150. This is our most popular options. These are the most popular floor plans. We're going to finish up the rest of this, lead strong and get our crews over onto the next development that we're doing. And they can build it on spec knowing full well that at a certain point, the last 10, 20 houses or so, all right? If the market takes a little downturn, interest rates go up, whatever, people are suddenly finding a new area more desirable, we can call up an institutional investor and they will come in and buy that block of houses. And we can finish that project. Sunnydale Farms Phase 1 is now done. We're off to our next project because the institutional buyers come in there and pick them up for less than the first phase people did. All right. The fun little thing to understand is that if they're closing out a project, the last ones are cheaper than the first ones. All right. And Bob's your uncle. All right. Economy, churning, numbers. Right. So let's cap this out now. Now that builder no longer has his safety valve. Right. He can't build on spec anymore. Right. So at a certain point, he's just got to say, no, guys, we're furloughing for the next 3 weeks. We don't have any orders in. And now the builders were making good money building houses. Suddenly are at a stop and they're waiting for the sales department to get the next one sold. This will actually reduce the overall amount of houses being built. But people don't think about these things. All right. This is a law of unintended consequences. They don't look at their second or third order effects. All right. They're only looking at what sounds good to the knuckle draggers. Right. Sitting in the Starbucks line to get their mocha frappa latte and stuff like that before they drive the rest of the way to work, listening to the dulcet soy boy tones of NPR. Right. So that's your turn. And that's the issue we're talking about on that particular one. Now, there is an exception on this. If the house is built rent to own, right, but that project has to be developed as we're building rent to own, right, and that's a scam in itself. Or we're building, build to rent BTRs, all right, and then it's okay. Now, the issue with that is, so now we're going, oh my God, now they're just going to go straight over to here because it's safer. It's safer for the builder who's doing a lot, speculating in money that the housing market is not going to crash in the next year. All right. Or rumor mill yesterday said that, oh my God, they're talking that Iran's going to launch drones into California. Last thing we need is another wave of Californians crossing the Colorado River in Arizona. All right. But that would be a housing crash in California as people fled California inland to try to get out of drone range. And then they come here and they start buying up houses, and we see a repeat of, 2020, 2021. All right. So the exception to the build to rent, which will be safer for builders, meaning less houses are being built for ownership, right, is they carve it out. Say, yeah, you can do that. Build to rent. Great. But you have to sell it in 7 years. So you can build a project, rent it out for 7 years, but then you have to divest yourself of that asset, the house, by selling it within 7 years to a human being. You can't just pass it back and forth. All right. I haven't chewed on that, bit too much, trying to figure out where that might go. All right. It basically means everybody, it'll take out the new build market, and people will just be coming into these places. But hey, you know what? If you're one of those tenants and you're there at year 7, right? I've dealt with a lot of people who suddenly get that call from their landlord going, I'm selling the house. I've made that call because landlords are pussies and won't actually call their tenants up themselves. All right. It's like, hey, just so you know, they've decided they want to sell this house. All right. So they're talking about not renewing your lease. And they sent me over to talk to you to see if you are in a condition or a position to buy the house from them. Now, in a rent-to-own system, that might work. Rent-to-own for 7 years, and at the end of 7 years, you can pay us what the market rate value is. And we'll give you credit for the time that you rented before. Is the credit going to are you going to be signing that rent-to-own? Like, I will purchase this house in 7 years from you at today's price. Meanwhile, I'm going to rent it from you for the next 7 years. There's not a company in the world that's going to agree to that. But so anyways, couple of caveats is that big, evil, greedy corporations are not buying houses way everybody thinks are. They've actually been divesting themselves over the last 2 years. The percentage of houses owned by big corporations have actually gone down, despite what Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren think. Right? I include Donald Trump on this too, because every once in a while he starts talking about things. He should know better. He was in real estate. All right. So that the build to rent thing, if we go this, with the BTR, with the issue of, you have to sell in 7 years, that's going to be less of those are going to get bought or going to get built, because they can't figure out the financing, saying, okay, I'm going to have an asset that for the next 30 years is going to be generating revenue, and it's an asset that I have to divest of in 7 years. So I need to make money in the first 7 years to break even, or, all right, I need to, speculate that we're not going to have a housing crash sometime in the next 7 years, and that asset that I legally have to get rid of at a certain point isn't going to be worth a lot less. All right. So all in all, not a great act. All right. Sounds good. It's fluffy. I'm not happy with this. Actually, and then, all right. So that was Ray, the real estate agent. Let's talk about Ray, the homeowner. I love this policy. I love it so much. Why? Because I'm a have, and you're a have not. Okay, and this little policy right here takes my house and makes it much more expensive. My asset is growing and growing and growing. Okay, because the politicians that I as a homeowner elect in there do nothing more to make sure that my asset grows, because I vote and you don't. All right, and this is what you get when you don't vote. So, moral of this story, kids, get yourself educated, vote every once in a while, and do not listen to people who are trying to sell you this kind of crap. All right? It's not going to work out well for you. So, that's a fun bill. I'm going to be tracking that for a while. You got my first glance look at it. There might be some provisions in there that actually are really good. Remember last year we covered the whole, hey, we got all this weird federal land just randomly floating around in municipality areas. Do we really need it? Maybe we could get rid of some of that. We need to get rid of, some of these zoning issues here in Arizona. Pima County has lifted its building moratorium because apparently they discovered water, or figured out how they were going to get more water into their, in there so they can build more houses. All right. Nothing like a couple really good desalinization plants in the Baja Cia Cortez, pumping water up here. Just thinking, guys. They are planning on putting that desalinization plant out there into the Goodyear area, because the groundwater is really, really heavily saline out there. So they can desalinate it, which is they boil the salt out of it. All right, and then use that water for like chip manufacturing and whatnot. So we have ways. We're moving along, okay? But these are all local fixes. And honestly, I do not think anything that the feds come up with, be it a 50-year fixed rate mortgage, there's a conversation about making FHA loans assumable, all right? It doesn't work for VA loans because it's very hard to get these loans assumable, all right? Now, you make that loan transferable. Now we got something. All right. You would see more people churning if they could take their 2% rate with them somewhere else. But banks aren't going to be interested in that. They want their money back. So, all right. What does this mean to you? Carry on. Watch your children, pets around water. Do not drive in anything flooded. Okay. Work your circles every day. Like, share, and subscribe every once in a while. All right. I will, if I run into you on the street, there will be a pop quiz and to see if you've actually paid attention to this episode. Other than that, you guys have a great weekend. When we're done, it's going to be next time after St. Patrick's Day. So let's see if my liver survives. Talk to you guys later.